The brutal ways ancient humans punished crime. Ancient courts didn't lock people away. They cut off hands in the town square. So who was all that spectacle actually for? We're tracing the same design across 6 civilizations: Mesopotamia, Rome, Han China, the Aztecs, Egypt, and early Israelite law, to find out who punishment was really built for. The thing nobody really asks is why ancient punishment had to be so public in the first place. That answer is simpler than you'd think, and it changes how you read every example that follows. Ancient societies didn't have prisons, not the way we mean the word now. Rome had no penitentiary system for ordinary criminals. The Aztecs, a people who moved often, called a prison system impossible. Egypt preferred forced labor, exile, or a quick death over locking someone in a cell. Early China marked the body instead of warehousing it. Israelite law handed the killing straight to the community. But here's what should stop you. These 6 societies never traded notes. Mesopotamia, Rome, the Aztecs, Egypt, Han China, and Israel had no contact with each other, no shared texts, nothing to copy from. Therefore, the fact that all 6 landed on the same public solution isn't a coincidence. It's a sign the answer was forced on them, not chosen by them. With nowhere to hide an offender, punishment had to be visible to work at all. Deterrence only functions if someone sees it, and these societies had no walls to do the seeing for them. So every one of them, completely independently, engineered punishment as a public performance. The crowd wasn't an accident. The crowd was the mechanism. And that's the thread running through everything ahead. Because in every culture we're about to look at, the people watching are the real subject. Hold one question as we go. If this was so universal and so effective, why did it ever stop? We'll start with the oldest version of it, carved in stone in Babylon. We're only one civilization in. 5 more brutal justice systems are coming. Hit subscribe now so you don't miss where this goes. So let's start with the first society that wrote this idea down in stone, literally. Around 1753 BC, in Babylon, a king named Hammurabi commissioned a stele of black basalt, 2¼ meters tall, and had roughly 282 laws carved into it. Then he put it where people could read it. The monument itself is the first piece of theater. The law is performed on stone before it's ever performed on a body. At the top of the pillar, there's a relief of Hammurabi standing before Shamash, the sun god and the god of justice. The prologue claims the gods gave him his rule to stop the strong from crushing the weak. His authority is staged, divine, and out in the open. The code runs on a principle you've probably heard: an eye for an eye. Strike your father, and your hands come off. But the punishment doesn't just hurt, it mirrors. The crime gets rewritten onto the offender's body, in the exact spot where everyone in the square can read it. Therefore, the body becomes a kind of text, and the crowd decodes it. A Babylonian walking past that stele doesn't stop at the words. He pictures it happening to a body in the plaza right next to him. Mesopotamia displayed the law. Rome displayed the body, and it turned that display into an engineering problem. Roman crucifixion was built for what the sources call maximum deterrent effect. Once a body went up, it stayed up. Cores were typically left on the cross to rot and be picked apart by animals. The display kept going after the person was dead. The Roman purpose was twofold: a long, agonizing death and public deterrence. Seneca, writing in the 1st century, described crosses not just of one kind, but made in many different ways. Some with the victim upside down, some impaled, others stretched out. Variety drove the show. Josephus records that during the siege of Jerusalem in 70 CE, Roman soldiers nailed countless captives to crosses. and he notes they did it in various ways. This wasn't a quiet execution. It was mass public display, and crucifixion was reserved for the bottom of the social order: slaves, rebels, and non-citizens. It marked your status as much as your crime. But Rome went further than a quick death. They stretched the dying across hours, sometimes days, where the crowd could watch every stage of it. Therefore, the suffering itself was the product, and the crowd was the consumer. The cross was a stage, not just a killing device. There's one piece of hard evidence for all of this. In 1968, archaeologists in Jerusalem found the remains of a man named Jehohanan, crucified in the 1st century. His heel bone still had an iron nail, 11.5 centimeters long. Driven through it, the tip bent against a knot in the wood. It's just one skeleton, but it proves the practice was real, not just a literary image. Rome made dying public. Han China made the crime permanent. The 5 punishments were the core of China's penal system for centuries. Before Emperor Wen of Han, who ruled from 180 to 157 BC, they came in 5 escalating forms: tattooing the face, cutting off the nose, amputating one or both feet, castration, and death. Strip away the death penalty, and the other 4 share a single design choice. They were built to mark the offender's body for life. A branded face doesn't wash off. It travels with you, and the crowd reads it every day, in every market, on every road. One execution method had a name that translates to abandoning the body in the marketplace. They killed you, then left your corpse in the public market where people bought and sold. The body stayed where commerce happened. Maximum exposure. Other death methods included quartering the body into 4 pieces, boiling alive, and tearing the limbs off by tying them to chariots. But Rome's display ended when the body rotted. China's mark lasted as long as you did, and the punishment became your identity. Therefore, the punishment didn't end after one display. The crowd enforced it daily. Just by looking at you, you carried the theater with you for the rest of your life. And there's a thread to hold here. The 5 punishments for slaves were eventually abolished under Emperor Wen, after a petition from a woman named Shunyu Tiyang, a documented moment when the spectacle got pulled back. So keep that in mind. So far, the crowd has only been watching. The Aztecs made them part of the ritual itself. The Aztecs had no prison system, so punishment had to happen where people already gathered. The condemned could be taken straight to the local temple altar and killed, strangled, or stoned on the spot the moment the sentence came down. The methods fused punishment with ritual. One was heart extraction. The victim laid on a sacrificial stone, an obsidian blade opening the chest. Another was an arrow sacrifice. The condemned tied between 2 posts, a white spot painted over the heart, archers shooting every part of the body except the heart and head, which they saved for last. And the dead didn't leave the public eye. Skull racks, called sompantle, displayed human skulls openly, usually from war captives or sacrificial victims. The dead stayed on display as a permanent warning aimed straight at the crowd. But Roman China kept punishment separate from religion. The Aztecs collapsed the 2. The killing happened on a temple altar, performed by priests, framed as feeding the gods. Therefore, the crowd watched a sacred obligation, not mere justice. Questioning it meant questioning the gods, and that made the spectacle untouchable. Under Nezahualcoyotl of Texcoco, who ruled from 1402 to 1472, 80 written laws called for severe, publicly administered punishments. Spectacle as social control, written down and codified. The Aztecs made punishment sacred. Egypt made it eternal, and they designed punishments that followed you past death. Egyptian justice revolved around a concept called ma'at, cosmic order and balance. Any crime disturbed that balance, and it had to be corrected in the open. The condemned became, in the words of one source, a gruesome public lesson in obedience. The key move Egypt made was pushing punishment past death. Egyptians believed an intact, properly preserved body was required for eternal life. So burning and drowning did something worse than kill you. They denied you a proper burial, and that denied you entry to the afterlife. Reducing a body to ashes effectively barred that person from eternity. Impaling worked the same way as a public spectacle. A greased stake, the body lowered inch by inch, the crowd watching hours or even days of it. And the marking was permanent too. Tomb robbers got a hand cut off, losing both the ability to steal and the ability to earn. Exiles sent to a desert place called Rhino Kalora had their noses forcibly removed, so anyone who escaped could be recognized on sight. Disfigurement as a permanent crowd-readable marker, the same idea as China's in a completely different part of the world. But every other culture we've looked at punished the living body. Egypt punished the soul's destination. The sentence didn't end at death. It began at death. Therefore, the crowd witnessed something past death itself. They watched a man's eternity get revoked. And one honest note on the evidence. The afterlife denial belief runs through all of Egyptian history. But the clearest documented cases, like the Harem conspiracy under Ramesses III, come from the New Kingdom, not the Old Kingdom. This concept is sound even where the examples are later, and that matters because it means the idea outlasted dynasties. Every system so far kept the crowd separate from the executioner. Early Israelite law erased that line completely. Stoning was the most common form of capital punishment in the Torah, and its defining feature is the one most people miss. The community carried out the execution. There's a passage in Deuteronomy about a rebellious son, and it says, "The men of his town shall stone him to death." Then it adds, almost as a footnote, all Israel will hear and be afraid. The law states the deterrence purpose out loud. It's written into the code itself. At least 2 witnesses were required for any capital case, and the witnesses threw the first stones. The community, not some distant state apparatus, started the killing, and the net of capital offenses was wide. Murder, striking your parents, kidnapping, witchcraft, idolatry, breaking the Sabbath, adultery, blasphemy, all of it resolved through visible public community execution. But in every other system we've looked at, the crowd watched while specialists did the killing. Here, the crowd is the executioner, with no gap between audience and actor. Therefore, the spectacle reaches its purest form, because the deterrence and the participation are the same act. You don't just see justice done. You do it, and then you're afraid, because you just felt exactly what it costs. The onlooker has become the hand. The theater has no audience anymore, only participants. So what finally made every one of these civilizations put the show away? The criminal was never the point. Punishment across every one of these societies was performed for the crowd, not the offender. And the moment law enforcement became a permanent institution instead of a public spectacle, the brutality started disappearing. So what does it say about modern justice, that we had to hide punishment away just to keep it? If this changed how you look at justice, subscribe for more deep dives like this. 1. And if you want to keep going, the video on screen right now digs into another video just as deep as this.